Ghost of Tsushima is a game that, while not incredibly unique, does other tropes from many other open-world games such as Assassin's Creed really well, and that in and of itself is what makes the game so great. The amazing visuals combined with a great story and gameplay make it a treat to all who buy it. To start off with the gameplay here, I want to say that the gameplay in Ghost of Tsushima is really, really great. I think that it all fits coherently together, and that's what any game should aim to do, which is fit the pieces of its puzzle together and try and get a finished product in which the whole world immerses you and everything in the gameplay works to give you a better feel for what the game is trying to do. And in this case, it's a samurai power fantasy, and it's trying to express some samurai tropes with movies, and it does all that very well with its gameplay. So firstly, we have the first part of the puzzle, which is the combat. Combat here is extremely tight, and in this game you get it in the form of these stances that you earn by defeating different warrior leaders of towns that you liberate. So when you first kill a leader, you'll get a point, and those points will build up to a new stance you get. And different types of stances are effective against different types of people. For example, if you're up against a brawler, you can hit him with a tornado attack. If you're up against a swordsman, you can open them up with a lot of slashes. This is all negated, however, by later on you can get a heavy attack for your spearman stance, and it just kicks the opponent, and it's actually really overpowered, and it'll defeat pretty much any enemy in the game. So yeah, I think that's a horrible system that they should have fixed. But jokes aside, the combat is a really enjoyable part of the gameplay, and it does get a bit repetitive at the end, but I still feel like landing the perfect parries or last second dodges is great. And while I didn't get too deep with the gameplay, I know the game has a lot of depth with what it's trying to do, and the combat is still fun until the end, and I really enjoyed myself with the combat. So facing them directly is just one way with the combat. The second way you can do is with assassinations, which is one of the main things that is really fun to use, and it also plays into the story, which is very nice. So assassinations, at first you'll be sort of ashamed to use them or sort of shy to use them, but later on you'll embrace them, and they're really, really fun to do. The assassination system in this game is extremely fun. I think it's one of the best parts of the game, sneaking around and just getting a 1-second kill assassination, sneaking around again. It all blends so well together, and you can go seamlessly between the combat of fighting with the opponents and sneaking around and assassinating. It's just pretty much just a standard assassination system, but it's as everything else, it's just done really well done here. So while you'll be fighting for a lot of the game, and it's the first thing you think of, there's also the second part of the gameplay, which is equally as important, and that's the side quests. So there is a big issue with the side quests, but I won't get into it too much here. I'll just say that there's a lot of side quests. There is a massive quantity of them. I won't talk about the quality too much because that's a whole other thing, but just know that there's a lot of side quests. And aside from these quests and the combat, there's also certain collectibles you can find in the world, such as Inari Shrines, which is just a fox shrine you follow and you get like charm upgrades, hot springs, and they can raise your health, haiku, and you can get some like vanity gear for yourself, and bamboo strike, just to mention one more. This one raises your resolve, and it's just a fun challenge. I enjoy collectibles, and I find it just fun to run around the world to get them. I'm not sure about other people, but I really enjoy doing that. It wasn't too much of a drag for me. At the end, I was getting a bit tired of finding them, but they do give you a tracking system, so it doesn't really matter too much unless you have something really against it. But I personally enjoyed myself till the end finding those collectibles. And I won't talk about, there's one other thing that really annoys me, but that's the waypoint system, and I think I'll mention it later on in the story because it plays into both the gameplay and the story, so I'll just talk about it later. Overall, the gameplay of Ghost of Tsushima is really, really great. For a lot of these games, I'm fine with the story, but usually the gameplay is what turns me off. For example, some games like God of War, I did not enjoy the gameplay at all. It didn't feel satisfying for me to just play it. It felt like everything was heavy and sluggish. That's just my opinion, but I'm really glad that they managed to nail the style, feel, and look of the gameplay and how it all feels, and still make it engaging for the person playing. So yeah, gameplay, while it may feel repetitive, I did 100% the game, and 40 hours into my journey, I still found myself finding enjoyment from nailing perfect parries or getting last second dodges into slashes. It all feels extremely well done. So yeah, gameplay is definitely a strong suit for Ghost of Tsushima. Now I'm going to talk about one of the aspects that I was really excited for this game, and I was also very scared to experience because I was not sure if it'd live up to my expectations, but I can safely say that it is my favorite aspect of the story, the favorite aspect of the game, and this is the story. The story in this game is extremely well done, and I'm someone who values story nearly equal or over gameplay in many types of games or in some games. And I'll say that at the beginning, you'll feel like the story is somewhat generic of someone rejecting their identity but finding a new one. But later on, they get specific story beats that really betrays the player's expectations. And when they hit, they really, really do hit. I was surprised consistently by what the narrative and what they were giving me in terms of the story. I wasn't expecting it at all to get into this specific territory. I'll talk about how the story works. So there's two types of quests that they give you in Ghost of Tsushima. You have the side quests, which are completely trivial. Like, they're not completely trivial. They do contribute to the world and add more to the narrative, kind of, but they're not stuff that you're really going to remember each specific one for. They're just kind of more things to help build the world around you and show you what the Mongols are doing to the Japanese people. Those ones I have a massive issue with, and it's that the side quests can range from either extremely boring to really great, and I will say that the good ones are really good. They do what they're supposed to do. They add to the world, and they make it feel more alive, and they do a lot of great stuff for the entire story. But the boring ones, and there's so many of these, I just feel like they're all trailing missions, and I'm just sitting there walking behind this person. They're just taking their time, and I don't even care about them that much. Like, I get it. I've done like 50 of these missions, and I really do not care about the people anymore. So I feel like people will, if you're not going for the platinum, then there's no reason to do all these missions, and people will genuinely miss out on a lot of great ones that add a lot more to the emotion and story. And just because of these trailing missions that they've had to do repeatedly, and it all just feels like filler content with those missions. There are like about 70% filler missions, like 10% good missions, and 20% of great missions, I'd say, for the side quests. So yeah, that is definitely something that annoys me. But then we'll move away from those side quests and move on to something that I think is well done here, and it's that when Jin goes into battle later on, he'll need certain allies to overtake the Mongol, the Khan, the person you have to defeat. So these allies each have their specific story. For Masako Adachi, one of my favorite stories, was about her getting revenge for her dead family, and it also does a great job of building up and betraying the expectations and giving new plot, giving new reveals for the plot, and it just does a great job of exploring specific themes for revenge and stuff like that. And another one, for example, is Yuna, and you have the Norio tale and Sensei Ishikawa, and they all explore different themes, and they each do it extremely well. So when you go into battle with these people, you don't care. You don't feel like, I don't care if they die or anything. They're just like, I don't know anything about them. But no, you do know stuff about them. You've gone with them through the journeys, and you've seen how they've suffered and how they've experienced different emotions. And you really do enjoy seeing them in the final battle and in the final moments where you feel something, and it contributes so much more to the ending and it just contributes to the story a lot more. So those quests are all great. I enjoyed basically every single one of them. At the beginning, they do get a bit annoying, but later on they pick up, and when they pick up, they just get really, really great. Now I'll get on to the main story. The main story, I think, is incredibly well done. As I said it in a little bit ago, the beginning is slightly generic, but once you get past that, you will see that there is so many plot twists and there is so many reveals, and it just keeps surprising you. After the ending of Act 2 was phenomenal. You see Jin specifically rejecting his uncle, and this is what I wanted since Act 1, where he he'd went against his uncle's wishes and started assassinating people, and I was hoping that it would have this kind of lead up. I didn't want anything where it almost threw away everything that I wanted it to become. But no, they had a straight face off, and Jin specifically rejects his uncle right then and there and chooses to save the people of Tsushima rather than living in a different way than what he actually believes in. And this was such a great moment for the story. The choreography was perfect. I'd say the music was amazingly accompanied. The cutscene, the graphics added so much to it since it's all very realistic. But yeah, that was a great moment, and that was just Act 2 ending. Act 3 ending was also very great, where, just in case you ignore the spoiler warning at the beginning, this is a massive spoiler. Jin, he goes directly against his uncle and gets the ideologies have a battle, and you see what happens. You see whether Jin was right and whether Shimura was right, and of course you end up having a battle with him, and this just comes to the perfect crossing point. They each respect each other immensely, and it really hurts seeing how his uncle and his nephew have to battle out just because of their differing ideologies in one thing, which is the honor. And I think that was perfectly done. That was an amazing moment. That, once again, the choreography was great, the graphics were amazing, the music accompanied so well, and it was just a perfect build up and ending for what was an amazing story as well. So there's not much else to say there. I think the story was easily the strongest part of the game. The gameplay was great, but I do value a good story, and this story was one of the best I have played in a long time. Everyone's seen the Ghost of Tsushima before. We all know it's the graphical fidelity of the game and the graphical aspect of the game is extremely well done. And I saw this game, 2 years ago at E3, and I saw that it looked really good. It was definitely one of the better games I've seen on PS4, and having fully seen it now, I think it is one of, if not the best looking game on PS4. I'm someone who absolutely, I don't care if the game is realistic. It can have any type of art style, and if it's good, I'll like it. I won't have any issue with it. One of my favorite games is The Wind Waker, and The Wind Waker has a cel-shaded art style. It doesn't look realistic at all, and it's all cartoon and everything, but it does a really great job of expressing the characters, and I think that's one of the main things that any sort of game should be able to do, and it should be able to make you feel for the characters and see and have to be able to tell what emotion's happening. And in this game, you can do that, and the environments themselves are extremely well done, which is really good for this type of game, since most of the thing is going to be exploring the environment, and most of it's just going to be looking around and going around to these places. And I'm really glad that they made the environment come off as something that's really well done. You can see, when your horse is running around in a forest area, leaves will start falling down on the screen, or maybe he's running down the snow area, and the snow will be coming down from the horses, where he's running, and the snow will be coming up. So it's just a really well done graphical style, and it definitely did deserve to win the graphics of the year. But now I'll mention the OST. The OST, in my opinion, is good. It definitely does what an OST should do, which amplifies the video game, and it makes each specific scenes hit a lot more, and it keeps the game entertaining with specific the fights and liberating the villages and everything. And it does all that super well, but it's not something I'm gonna listen to it on its own. It's not something like Wind Waker, Nier, Automata, where I'll go and I'll genuinely listen to those tracks on their own, because they left me with a lasting impression, and I remember them, and I remember what I felt with the game with them. And it's not that type of track. It's sort of just almost background music, but it's really well done for what it tries to do. And I'm not going to act like it was bad at all. It was really great, but it's not something that I'll listen to it on its own. It's just simply good. Now I'm going to move on to my criticisms of the game. And I will say that while there aren't many, I think these criticisms do affect the game by a lot. So the first thing I'll mention is something that may seem trivial at first, but it's the horse AI. And while that may seem trivial because, like, why would the horse be that important? They're praising the game a lot because of the story and gameplay. The horse is extremely important to your journey. He takes you everywhere because the map is massive and you have to go from point A to point B a lot. And that's just something that you need the horse for. But when I have to end up calling the horse like five times before he comes, like, what is that? Why won't he come to me? Like, I get that I left him a while back, but I see him teleport a fair amount of times just straight to me. So why does that happen so often where he's just stuck back there? I end up having to take a Mongol horse much more often than I should have to, because I just don't even want to wait for my horse. It's really that bad of an issue. And when you're like 40 hours into the game, you're still having to wait on your horse and you're still having to run, it really badly affects the game. But it's not going to be something that I'm going to dock extreme points for. It's just something that really annoyed me near the end. At first I thought it was something I'm not even going to put in the review, but later on, something I could not ignore, honestly. But if we move aside from that, another thing that I have an issue with is the enemy AI. And I get that a lot of times they need to make the enemy AI dumber than they should be, where it's like in real life, obviously I'd be able to hear someone moving around me or something, or at least be able to sense it sort of. But in this one, I can sneak up right next to the person and just assassinate them without them even noticing, and no one will even blink an eye or bat an eye next to it. That's just something that I found that completely breaks the immersion, where it's just I'm kind of standing next to him. He doesn't even notice me. I'm right behind him. I could literally be breathing down his back, and he would not care. He would just see it as it's just maybe a bird or something or some wind. But it's kind of easy to kill and get away with it. It just kills the immersion massively. But yeah, I get why they did that to make the game a lot easier, but it's just kind of annoying. And lastly, this is kind of a big one. It's that the game has a waypoint system, and waypoint system is necessary for getting around a big map. I need to know where I'm going. I can get off track really easily. But with this one, I'm left looking around at my waypoint and seeing how many meters are left till I get there, rather than looking around at the environment and seeing whether I'm close or not, whether I can see any sort of the signs of the burning houses or the Mongols around me. I'm just left staring at my waypoint and at the wind to see where I'm going. And I get that the wind is an important mechanic for this game, that's a unique mechanic for this game, but I think they should have implemented it better where I can tell where I'm going just by looking at my environment, because half the time I'm just staring at the top left, seeing 50 meters left, 40 meters left, oh, I made a mistake, 60 meters left, I guess I'll turn back now, and I'll just look at my minimap again, and I don't even care where I'm going. I just look and I see that there's how many meters left, and I know I'm close at that point, but it also once again kills a lot of the immersion when you can just look at your meters and tell that's how close I am to this specific thing. And also, I'll mention this because it's not really too much of a complaint, but at the beginning, the game will mostly just feel like you're going from point A to point B, because you don't have fast travel, you don't know anything about the world, you don't care about any characters, you'll just be going from point A to point B, and the map will feel extremely empty, just picking up supplies, you don't care about the houses, you don't want to investigate the houses, and that's just something that it should have felt better at the beginning, because the beginning leaves a lasting impression on your players, and I think that they should have done it better. I think that's all the major issues I have with the game, and the smaller issues I don't think I need to mention that much, but yeah, those are some issues that bothered me. In conclusion, Ghost of Tsushima is a great game that is held back by some flaws, such as dead world at the beginning or repetitive side quests, but these are really triumphed over by the main story and the main quests. And as someone who 100%ed the game, I really started to feel the repetitive side quests as I let them stack up because I didn't feel like doing them. but the main story and gameplay were enough to keep me going, and they really made me kept going happily at that. It didn't feel too bad doing the side quest once I got into them, but yeah, it didn't feel bad at the end. I'm gonna go with a 9 out of 10 rating for this. I enjoyed it a lot, but there are those flaws that did make me it made me stop from giving it a 10. And while I think the ending is great and the story is great, that's not enough to make a game an entire 10 in my opinion. But that's enough said. This has become a favorite for me, and it's something that I'll be quick to recommend for anyone looking for something that scratches that samurai or open world itch. And it's just a great game, so I suggest you pick it up. And that's pretty much it. I'm gonna say the usual stuff here. If you like the video, please subscribe. Like, I really enjoy doing the reviews, so I'll keep doing them even if if I don't get much views. Just anything it just makes me feel better. It feels the dopamine that I need to keep going. So yeah, just like the video if you enjoyed, maybe subscribe or something. It's just fun doing these reviews. I like talking and maybe even ranting a bit. It's just a good time. Yeah, I'm kind of tired. Night.